Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. It's Monday, 15th of June. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Ruff and Alison McConnell are with me. We have a one-to-one with the Hamilton Vice Chairman and, of course, SPFL Board Member Les Gray. He'll be talking about, the burning topic, of course. It is, of course, the league reconstruction vote, which has failed. This is what the SPFL had to say about league reconstruction and the vote, with only 16 out of 42 voting for it. There is insufficient support for a new divisional structure, and that the current 12-10-10-10 format will remain in place for season 2021. 16 of the 42 clubs favoured changing to a 14-10-10-10 structure, but this was short of the numbers required. As a result, the SPFL board has agreed to draw a line under reconstruction talks. Separately, the 10 championship clubs have voted to approve a 27-game programme, with teams playing each other 3 times rather than 4. So there's the statement. First of all, Roughie, give me your reaction.
Well, obviously our club are hugely disappointed by the whole scenario. We thought on paper it looked like an easy fix just to promote 2 teams up there. The club now has to decide what road they're going down. I think that road they'll go down will be positive. It's now drawn a line in it, as the SPFL has said. So we really have to get on with it and focus on getting back up into the championship. And I think that's what the club will do.
Don't think there will be legal action from your club?
No, I think the view of the board is that money can be spent better elsewhere. I don't think there's any point in spending lots and lots of money going through the courts when we can focus on making a better deal for the players we've got at the club and try and get more players in, obviously, and focus completely on all our money and getting us back to where we should be in the championship.
Okay, this is what Neil Doncaster, the SPFL Chief Executive, had to say on the vote. Whilst a number of clubs were in favour of a new divisional setup, the support for it was insufficient, and we will now move forward with a fixture programme for season 2021 based on the current 12 and 3-10 structure. Due to the restrictions forced upon us by the coronavirus outbreak, the championship clubs also voted overwhelmingly to play each other 3 times next season rather than 4, which enables a later start to the Championship League season. Now that we have a confirmed structure for next season, the SPFL's fixturing team will begin work on the Premiership fixture list, which will start on the weekend of August 1st, and the Championship fixture list, which will start on the weekend of the 17th of October. So finally, Alison, no way back.
No, it seems final, doesn't it? It seems like an irrevocable decision now. I think that was the 4th attempt at league reconstruction. It's quite clear the appetite isn't there for it, and I think you can appreciate the perspective at the minute from Hearts and from Partick Thistle and from Stranraer, but Hearts, I think, have already begun the process now of taking legal action, and I think they might be emboldened by that, by what's happened in France in recent weeks, and obviously they feel as though they have a very justifiable grievance now that they'll go and take through the courts to see if they can rectify it. I think probably their position is maybe magnified by the fact that the championship clubs will only be playing an abbreviated season 2, so again it further contracts the finances that would be coming into the club in a different vein again.
Well, from the SPFL and, of course, Neil Doncaster to Hearts, what would their reaction be? Well, it was swift and as expected. Here's what the Tynecastle Club released as a press release. We have worked tirelessly to try to find a solution that would right the most obvious wrongs that have been caused by decisions taken as a consequence of COVID-19. Hearts have stated repeatedly no club should be disadvantaged because of this crisis. This was the final opportunity for kinship to prevail and for Scottish football to stand together in an emergency. Now all other avenues are closed. We are left with no choice but to proceed with a legal challenge. We must now do the right thing by our supporters, our employees, our players and our sponsors. The club can confirm that the necessary steps have been taken to begin this legal challenge. To our amazing fans, we say that we cannot and will not sit idly by and watch the decisions made in the past few months further damage hearts. Thank you for fighting for us. Now allow us to do the same for you. Strong words, Roughie. They are going to go all the way with this now.
Yeah, I think Ann Budge said from day one, that's what she was going to do. She stuck to her guns. I think she's every right to do it. They're losing lots more money than anybody else. It's a big business at Hearts. We're now talking £4 million. I don't think you can let that go lightly. I don't think she thinks that everything has been handled right from day one, right from that vote away back, whenever it was. So, it'll be interesting to see what legal route she goes down. I think she'll have a few options. We'll just have to sit tight and wait and see. The other thing I would add in our instance as well, I forgot to mention, Peter, that although we're saying we are where we are, I think that it might be taken further if they tell us there's no games to play. If they tell us that there's no games to play till January or February, I don't think that'll be acceptable with the club, because you can't put somebody down a division and then tell them you can't make any money. So I think that's the point, that Thistle have to wait and see, and they will be pressing for a date of when these leagues are going to start, if they're going to start.
Yeah, it's a very valid point, Roughie, and I take exactly the stance the Partick Thistle are taking on this, because it really is a restriction of trade, and they're part of an organisation, and they are a vital member of it, that they are able to play. This all, again, will take a few twists and turns, Alison, on the basis that some clubs might say they're not ready to actually be, prepared with all the regulations in place and have a team ready to fulfil fixtures. It may well be in the Championship, but again, if you are like Partick Thistle and you have the facilities, you have the backup financially, and you have a squad available to play, you must be told there's a place for you to play.
Especially when you factor in the fact that you're talking at best that you're going to be essentially 6 months without any football, without gate receipts, without that money coming in on a weekly basis. It's unsustainable in the long term. So I think you can fully appreciate when clubs say, look, we need to know that we're going to start and when we're going to start, and also that if it is going to be in January or February, well, that's a problem for us because we can't sustain ourselves without that regular income. And for the likes of Thistle, for the likes of Hearts who will be going down, it's huge. It really is huge when you consider the finances that are involved and the money that will be lost. You can fully understand why you would seek to redress it through the courts.
Well, I have to say, and I've been quite vocal in this, I don't want to hear any chief executive or chairman ever in the next decade utter the words sporting integrity with regards to what has unfolded over the last 3 months. I've never been so sickened by the conduct of some individuals who represent clubs, and over and above that, the amount of self-interest that's been taking place. There's been backstabbing, there's been infighting, there's been accusations flying right, left and centre, and in the middle of a pandemic which has cost so many people their life, we've witnessed the conduct from SPFL clubs which is unbecoming of anybody that you would expect even in a normal family. And we now have a situation where we are faced with potentially some clubs that will struggle to continue, but we had the opportunity, in my mind, for everyone to come together as a collective and show solidarity with each other, and also show some kind of fairness towards clubs that were being unfairly treated. And that should have been, in a financial sense, saying, look, we are not going to penalise you. They have done that. I think it's despicable. It's the only way I can sum it up. The conduct of some of the clubs in the SPFL, for 16 out of 42 only to vote in favour of it, just reeks of everybody saying, I'm all right, Jack, to hell with you. So I never want to hear one of them utter the words sporting integrity. You wouldn't know it if it came up and kicked you in the face. As far as I'm concerned, Roughie, 3 clubs are suddenly down a division and facing even more financial penalties than under normal circumstances of this pandemic for every other club. It was an opportunity to say, look, we'll all take this collectively as a hit and we will change it for the betterment of the game. Somewhere along the line, Roughie, I feel as if with the infighting and individuals having a go at each other, it started to become petty, it started to become personal, and it started to become about a narrative that changed over a 6-week period, which was, well, we might think about change, but then we don't like the way Hearts are acting about this. This is about saving Hearts. To hell with them. And then, oh, wait a minute, we might lose our games against Celtic and Rangers in this as well. No, to hell with you. We'll just keep it as it is.
Yeah, I think that's the disappointing thing about the whole thing, Pete. As I said earlier, it looked a simple solution. Promote 2 teams, promote and no relegation. I don't know why there has to be relegation. I just really don't. Why this was a big issue. Where be positive and promote the teams, the Kelties, the Broras, anybody who's done well, and leave everything else as it is. It's just you would like the 16. You're not going to get it, but I would like the 16 to show their face, and let everybody know why they voted, and then we can get our heads round, what all their different agendas were, because that's the only way most of us are going to get our head round this, because I think everybody we've had on the show has believed the 14-10-10-10 was the best solution for Scottish football, but for 16 just to vote, it's just as you said,
no.
Head
it's only
shaking.
16. It's only 16 who voted in favour of it, Roughie. 16 have voted in favour of it.
Yeah, that's
they
what
They want
and
reconstruction.
It's just but the rest, obviously, the majority don't.
Yeah.
So I would like the majority to come out and show their face and say, look, hey, let's get your reasoning, and some of the reasoning you might get your head round, but I would doubt it. But it would be really, really good to get some of them instead of just hiding behind not even a name on a vote.
I mean, in my opinion, and we're going to hear from Les Gray, and believe me, it's a longer interview. I would ask you if you are a football fan and a neutral, who likes football and is intrigued by the comments. Les is a member of the SPFL board, and it's a very interesting listen to what he has to say on it. But Alison, my personal opinion, I'm giving you the personal opinion on this, is that the image of Scottish football has been tarnished by the conduct of individuals. And Mark on our Facebook page says, name names. Mark, have you not been following football? I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to work out some of the things that have gone on. If you've been watching this programme after the last 3 months, you'll know exactly what's going on and how they've been washing their dirty linen in public. There's been slagging matches, calls for suspensions, people revealing WhatsApp groups, people revealing who's voting which way. The whole thing was handled shabbily. The whole thing now has become all about individuals, Alison. And I think the other thing about this is not just about the vote now, Alison. This is about the ripple effect of how this is going to take its toll on clubs in the next 1, 2, 3 months, maybe 1, 2 years, 3 years possibly. Hibs have already announced just there that they're asking players to take a wage cut. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's inescapably unjust what has happened. I think when there were games remaining and there was a possibility of extricating yourself from the possibility of relegation, I think it's very difficult to square with the fact that you lose that opportunity to rescue yourself, given the precarious nature of the finances involved and what that can lead to for your club. That's the first point. The second point is, I think the economic implications of what we've all lived through for the last 3 months, I think we are only just beginning to feel and just beginning to see. I think as we go deeper into the year, I think we'll all be in the grip of a recession, and I think what happens next then in football will not be untouched by what goes on in society in a wider role. But ultimately, what today's decision has come down to isn't so much the larger clubs in the top flight, but the smaller clubs who are looking at it and thinking we can't really afford to take a gamble on losing. I think it would be about 200k that would be roughly the finances involved for going to the 14-team league. You would sacrifice, there would be a small financial sacrifice involved in that, and that's essentially what it's come down to. And they've said, well, if we're going into this recession and we don't know what's going to happen and what comes next for our club, can we afford to gamble on losing that sum of money? And you've seen the answer today.
Yeah, and Billy Wallace has just come up on Facebook and says, Peter, your personal opinion is biased. Biased to who, Billy? Have I always been a Stranraer fan all my life? Have I always been a Partick Thistle fan? I'm certainly not biased to Partick Thistle. I've absolutely leathered them for their collusion with Dundee and Inverness at the start of this debacle. So I'm not biased towards them. I'm certainly not biased towards Hearts. If I mentioned at the start 3 months ago that we should save the likes of Hearts, then I stand by that. I think we have to look at the whole collective here and suddenly see the difficult circumstances, the financial implications. But some clubs just don't want to do that. And remember, there are also some petty-minded people out there who've got it in for other people that they just don't like, Roughie. That's another caveat in this toxic affair.
Yeah, I think that's a disappointing thing. I think a lot of good faith that you have when you travel around the country and playing other teams in your division. You know, there is a very good place if you're a boardroom or if you're in the supporters. Generally, most of them all get on with each other. You know, I think the ill feeling now is going to be out there for everybody to see. I think it's going to be a horrible, you know, year for some teams when they come to play each other, because everybody will know who had an agenda against a particular club, and they'll have to deal with that. You know, so I think there's a lot of good feeling that Scottish football had within the clubs has now disappeared out the window.
Okay, we always try and react, and a statement has just come out in the last 2 seconds. Just popped up on my feed here from Partick Thistle. It says, Partick Thistle is neither shocked nor surprised by today's announcement. It's been clear for some time that we were to be sacrificed for the alleged greater good of the Scottish game, but it is still sickening now that it has been confirmed. In recent weeks, we have gone over the limited options open to us in this situation. Court action is our preferred route. However, the reality is that the cost to do so is prohibitive for us, and it comes with no guarantee of success. To raise an action would cost the club a six-figure sum. Indeed, it would mean effectively using the incredible six-figure sum raised by our fans to support the club through this difficult period. That is the equivalent of monies to bring 3 or 4 new players to the club or to get us back on track for next season. That has to be our priority, and what we believe a majority of our fans want too, building the strongest possible squad to win the matches when football returns. Therefore, the board will not pursue legal action at this time, but reserves the right to do so should circumstances change. So that's it, confirmed exactly the insight you were giving us, Roughie.
Yeah, I think it's a big point. The one about not having a date to start playing football or when you can't play football. I think the SPFL have to address that as quick as possible, because, as Alison said, we've got players who are ready to train, they're ready to play, they have to be paid, you know. So I think the priority is when you know when that is going to happen. But no, I think the club have been positive. I think Jackie had made this statement a month or two ago. If that's where we are, that's where we are. We'll deal with it. And we'll try and get back as quick as possible. And I think that's a positive move to let everybody know. I think the fans, as she said there, are quite rightly behind us. I think they raised something like 150,000 through all different kind of things that we did. So I think that's positive. But I know that she is really upset about the whole situation. She's upset about the relations, as I just said earlier, that we had with other clubs, and I think that has been tarnished in a big way.
Don't forget, if you want to put your point across, then by all means do so. We'll try and get as many out as we possibly can, and I'll read some of them out as we go along. Stuart Aitchison, this really isn't the show for you. This is a football show where people make pertinent points about football, not for abuse. So you could maybe go elsewhere. That would do us all a huge favour. Also, lots of people giving us their view on it, and of course, some critical of the way the board's conducted itself and the people on that board. But Alison, I think what's to be remembered here is the board just reflects what the clubs have voted for. It is each individual club that has cast a vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you go through it, you would probably be able to work out who the 16 teams are who voted for it. And it would certainly, I think you'd be able to identify the clubs who didn't have any appetite for it. But I'll reiterate. I have real sympathy for the clubs involved who now face relegation, because it was the fourth throw of the dice to come up with some form of league reconstruction. I would seriously doubt that there'll be another now. I think that the line in the sand has to be drawn. But also, what you have to factor in now is if there is a legal challenge from Hearts, what effect that has on the league and what effect it might have on the league starting in August if there is a decision that would go in their favour.
Yeah, that is the one thing I was looking at. Will it have an impact on the money if they start to go through this process? And could they halt the start of the season? My gut feeling on that, Roughie, is I'm not so sure they'll be able to, in effect, freeze the money that might be available to clubs at the start of the season. I think, if anything, the legal recourse as well is open to a chance of failure on the basis that over in Belgium, when they were taking this to court, it was an executive decision. It wasn't something that was taken collectively through a voting process. All the clubs have voted here, Roughie. So I think that might go against Hearts overall. They might win a technicality on the impact financially, which might give them some sort of recompense, but I'm not so sure they're going to win the argument because the SPFL have followed the rules as they are stated in their minutes.
Yeah, I think this is basically why Neil Doncaster called this would-be voice of where do you want to go. I think the SPFL have been lacking in that right from the start, but then all of a sudden he acts very positively, and I think he's done that because obviously Hearts are going to go to court. He has to be seen to be doing everything possible to get the right agenda or the right system. So, we'll just have to wait and see that one. But I think if this whole thing, if it goes to court, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't know what way you would get in court and what kind of road you would get down. But if this goes to court and it opens up an enormous can of worms right for the start, because it will be right for the start. They'll want evidence of everything that's happened for day one. Has this whole process been handled properly? And then it's just going to all open up again. But Alison's made a good point. If some lawyer thinks there's an injunction that stops the league, that is just something else that's down the road that's going to be absolutely horrendous for everybody to deal with. And I don't think she would do it lightly. I think she's really, really looked into it. I think she's had a lot of backing from a lot of big lawyers and QCs who have told her, they've actually told her what to do. So I don't think for a minute she's going to go down a road she doesn't think she's going to win.
Roughie, and I hate to, I don't think we'll find any hilarity. I don't think we'll find any hilarity in this show whatsoever. But I would tell you, I've yet to meet a lawyer, Ali, who says, "I think you have. I think you've got a rotten case." There's always a lawyer out there who'll take your case for you and take your money, and that's, listen. I have many friends who are lawyers, and quite simply, Ali, at the end of the day, they will argue, and they will argue the finite details of the rules, but in the end, they end up with a lot of money, and clubs would end up, as Partick Thistle have highlighted here, with a lot of lost money. Yeah,
I think we can all appreciate the case that they have, but ultimately what it probably, I don't have a legal mind, and I'm speaking here purely from a common sense point of view, but I think what it might come down to is the fact that this is the agreement with all the league clubs, that it's there in the contract that if there is a situation such as the one we've just had, that if the league is called early, that relegation ensues for the team that are sitting at the bottom of the league. Now, it's probably something that none of us have ever given thought to, that clubs have probably never given any attention to, because what we're experiencing now is entirely unprecedented. We have no scope for comparison to anything that's happened in a similar vein. So it's one of those things that most of us would be entirely unaware of because we've never had the opportunity to be confronted by it.
Yeah, Alison Ross, thank you for your email, Alison. Just come in, enjoying the show. She says, I thought Alison made a good point regarding the points that could have been made up, and she goes on to highlight season 2013-2014 for Hearts. And of course, it highlights the point that Hearts has only won 4 games all season before the last 8 games. But, you only have to look at Thistle's predicament as well, as Alison highlights there, with a game in hand, how unfair this whole system is for them. So lots of good points coming in. Thank you to so many. Some people think, well, that's it. There's the rules. You have to get on with it. Absolutely. I think we have to now look at this situation and see where it goes. I think there's still a couple of twists and turns to come, if I'm honest with you. I do hope you stay with us through this programme. Coming up next, I'm going to let you hear my interview earlier with the Hamilton Vice Chairman, Les Gray, and then Alison and Roughie and myself will come back and comment on it, as well as look at a number of other things that are going on in Scottish football. But it's well worthy of your listening to, because Les is a member of the SPFL board, and he didn't hold back on what unfolded today and over the last 3 months. Here's what Les Gray had to say to me. Well, I'm delighted to say our special guest on the Football Show is Les Gray, Hamilton Vice Chairman and, of course, an SPFL board member. Les, first of all, welcome to the programme. I presume over these last 3 months you are safe and well.
Yes, it's been a trying few months, Peter, as you're probably well aware. Yep, but all safe and well here, and looking forward to when we can get back to some form of normality, whenever that is.
Okay, let's deal with the issue as it stands. And what's your view on the outcome of the proposal and the vote?
My first thoughts were a great disappointment, because, as you are well aware, I've been an advocate of reconstruction for some time, and working hard in the background to try and make it possible, and to try and get a reconstruction package that would work for all the members, and at the same time prevent Hearts and Partick Thistle and Stranraer from being treated unfairly. So really disappointing, and it got to a stage where with the 14 and 310s that was out for debate over the weekend, I actually thought we might get 20 odd clubs, 25 clubs who'd be keen to consider it. And of course that didn't happen.
Okay, tell me, what were the main stumbling blocks?
I don't know. I mean, literally, the clubs have all submitted their indicative preferences to the centre, to the SPFL by today. And we had a board meeting this morning, and we didn't ask for any reasons why not or why. We just asked for a simplistic yes or no, because we've been over the course with all the different forms of reconstructions, from 3 14s to 2 14s and a 16 to, to my task force when we started it at the beginning, to the Premier League clubs saying they weren't really in favour of it, to Anne Budgie's proposal, to Rangers' proposal. You might as well have written a proposal yourself, Peter. It was getting to that stage.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. It's been one constant after another, even to the point where you started with Anne Budge in this task force. Were you surprised that before you'd even submitted the first proposal, that suddenly you were shot down in flames over a weekend?
Yeah, I mean, shot down in flames is maybe a bit sensationalist, but the bottom line is that there didn't appear to be an appetite in the Premier League at that point in time. But I felt quite strongly that as a board member could set up a task force with a view to getting to an end of that procedure. I felt disappointed that it was almost short-circuited at that point, when I feel that had we allowed it to continue, we still have ended up maybe where we are today with 14 and 310s, but at least it would have been a proposal from the centre after consultation with all the clubs, allowing the clubs to make the ultimate decision, which no doubt they've actually made today anyway. But I just felt that would have been a proper way to go about it.
Are you surprised that Hearts are now going to take legal action?
I've not had the time to look at anything that's been said today. I just came out of the SPFL board meeting, and no, I'm not that surprised. I think Anne has made it clear her preference would have been not to do that, and ultimately, she may feel that that's her only recourse now.
I mean, what are the implications of her taking legal action? to the start of the season, or in fact, legally with the SPFL?
Well, I think you'd have to ask her that. I mean, I'm not going to be prepared to comment on what Hearts might or might not do or what their guidance might be. We've got our guidance and our QC advice, and we know roughly, we know where that stands. So Hearts will do what they have to do, and we'd all hope to avoid that, obviously. And I think the SPFL board has left no stone unturned in trying to find a resolution that could allow for reconstruction and allow for fixing the problems of COVID effectively, but we've been unable to do it because the will of the members is ultimately what is carrying the day.
Yeah, you mentioned there, of course, you've got the QC and the legal advice on the way forward, so you don't think anything that happens legally will affect the start of the season now, which is, of course, looking like August 1st.
I mean, we are ploughing on with a view to starting in August 1st. That's the plan. Clubs need a bit of clarity. They've now got that clarity. It's not the clarity that Hearts, Partick Thistle, Austria and Rara, and indeed myself were looking for, but it is clarity nonetheless. And clubs have got big problems in terms of COVID, in terms of getting their infrastructures correct, their testing correct, and trying to get themselves up and running for the start of a new season. So that will be their focus going forward. And I think ultimately this has dragged on too long, which has maybe worked against the reconstruction.
Just on that point, I mean, I've been, quite vociferous in the fact that I think reconstruction should have taken place, not just to save Hearts, but obviously I think it's an unfair situation which you've highlighted for Partick Thistle and Stranraer, and of course the pyramid system which Brora and Kelty bought into as well, Les.
Yeah, and as part, I mean, I invited onto the task force representatives from the Highland, Rod, and from the Lowland League and George Fraser to give them input, because it mattered to me very much as a board member that we considered the pyramid. And I think if you speak to these guys, they'll tell you I've been nothing but transparent with them and trying to be helpful all the way. In fact, I spoke to George Fraser just the other day there, whilst this is ongoing. So I think where the members have obviously taken things into their own hands, they have a concern that people were getting too excited about trying to help two non-members whilst there was members in trouble. So you can see where it all starts to go wrong, Peter.
Yeah, but the one thing about it, and I'm talking about this from a personal situation of where we are as a community, where we are as a group of people looking at one of the most unprecedented situations we've been in with a pandemic, and clubs on the verge, staring at the abyss, wondering where their next penny's coming from. We should have been looking to take a collective view here to save all the clubs. And I cannot believe we've got to this situation where now some clubs might actually be staring at the edge of the cliff and wondering if they're going to be able to survive. Am I over-dramatising it? Am I being sensationalist in this thinking?
No, you're not. The only thing I would say to you is that it might well be the case that clubs will be facing the abyss, and it might well be the case that some clubs won't survive. Obviously, that would be something that we are trying desperately to avoid. But having said that, you never said anything there that gave me an alternative solution.
No, I to be perfectly honest with you, I can't.
I'm raising the issue that for a number of months, we as a board have spent, an awful lot of hundreds of man hours trying to look at what the consequences of any decisions that would be taken would have, and how we can get out the other side of it, trying to save all of the clubs. A, by getting money to them, B, by getting certainty, C, by getting a structure in place that could work for everyone. And the end result is where we are today. And that's with all of the clubs and the members' consultation. And nobody to this day has come up with a solution that's been any different from the one we've ended up at.
No, and if I can pick you up on that point, Les, I think you're to be commended. I don't need to come up with an alternative solution, because the solutions that were put forward in various forums were all about people ditching their self-interest, ditching their self-preservation, ditching their need for greed, and looking at clubs to try and save them. There didn't need to be an alternative proposal somewhere from pie in the sky. It was a proposal that was saying, is there any chance you can stop your greed and your self-interest and think about people here and now and stop penalising them for something that's not their fault? I don't think there needed to be an alternative in this one.
It's not quite as simple as that. I understand what you've just said there. But from the very start, we did consider 14 310s. We considered 314s. We considered 14s with a 16. We considered a 14 with a 20 in the middle to protect almost full-time football. There wasn't many considerations that weren't put on the table, to be honest with you, and that's why, against my better judgment, we had a reconstruction panel, Peter, of an awful lot of people. I think it was 15 of us, and that's because everybody that asked to be part of it, we included. We didn't want to exclude anyone, and still we were unable to come up with something that works for everyone. It would appear, and that's the key to this: is trying to get the right number of members, and of course, when you have a members' organisation, and you'll know if you're a member of a golf club, if Roughie's a member at the sport by playing his tennis, you need to live by the rules of the club. Otherwise, you need to find another club to play in. And unfortunately, that's the nature of a members' organisation.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%, but it doesn't actually make them exempt from their conduct, which I think is unbecoming in a situation which is unparalleled over the last 100 years of the history of Scottish football. To get to a situation where clubs suddenly are being relegated through no fault of their own and being ask every club to try and help in the darkest hour which is facing Scottish football. And the other thing about it, Les, is this decision doesn't just end now. This decision will have repercussions for players, for livelihoods, for people who actually will feel the force of this 2-3 months down the line when the ripples come through and clubs have to slash just to try and keep their head above water. That's the implications of what's been done today.
No, I don't agree with that, Peter. I think the implications of everything you suggested would be there regardless of whether Hearts were relegated and Thistle were relegated or not. Here because of COVID. So whether people reconstructed the league or not doesn't change the challenges they all face. They still face the same challenges. What you're really saying is that they should be able to look at themselves in the mirror and do the right thing. That's really what you're saying. But it doesn't change anything in terms of the challenges and all of the things that they have to face for the next number of months and next couple of years going forward. I think one of the issues has always been, and I hear the words greed and self-interest thrown about because these are easy phrases to throw in, but you've been in this game a long, long time, and so have I. And there's not that much money about football, first of all, for there to be greed. Other than the top clubs, if you look at everything else, they're in pretty much a level playing field once you get outside the top four in our country. And then when you look at Leagues 1 and 2, they're pretty much in a level playing field down there as well. So I don't think it's fair to say it was all greed and self-interest. I think once you start discussing something that many times, it's the definition of insanity, Peter, isn't it? We're continuing to discuss the same things, expecting a different result. Nobody's coming up with a solution that's any different. And that's ultimately what's happened. And the end result today has been people have got fed up listening to all the conversations and not being able to get to an end game when really they're facing the trap door, they're facing liquidation, they're facing no income, no fans in stadia, and needing to buy machinery and testing kits and want to get on with their life and try and go forward. So all of that is really quite difficult. And that's what the clubs have been trying to manage. That's my reading, my sense check of reading, having spoken to an awful lot of clubs.
Well, let me define you my interpretation of greed. If I've got a tenner and I spot you on the street and I decide that with that tenner that I'm collectively with my mates not giving you a quid, and that's what's facing Hearts. They could have, £1-2 million of a loss by being relegated when they couldn't finish their season. Who's going to recompense them? I mean, everybody collectively could have said, okay, if we change it, then they won't be penalised. Thistle won't be penalised, Stranraer won't be penalised, and we'll collectively share the money a little bit further out. That's what my interpretation of greed is. It's that charitable view of saying, as a collective, let's help each other. We might take a hit for our money in the big clubs you're talking about, but let's not penalise you through no fault of your own.
So if you give me the tenner when I'm selling the big issue and I'm on the street, and the risk of me taking the tenner off you is potential I could lose 20 or 30, even though I've not got it, by making a change. That's what we're talking about here. So the risk to, for example, my own club would be a good example. A bottom six club in the Premier League would be, and we were in favour of trying to get this reconstruction. It was always something I've been shouting about for 5 or 6 years. And it's reported in the papers that we're not, but I've been behind this for a long time. But there's certain things that don't work. So if you take the bottom 6, for example, and they all get together and they agree it's the right thing to do, the moral high ground would be to try and protect the integrity of the game and to stop Hearts and Thistle getting relegated without the season being completed. But the reality is, what was on the table for some of these clubs in some cases was a temporary reconstruction where there might be 3, I believe 4 relegations in a year's time or 2 years' time. So you're asking me to take your tenner, but maybe give you up everything I've ever had for my whole life next year. And that's a difficult, to use your analogy.
I'll pick up on that point because I think it's a very good point you make, because quite simply someone levelled the accusation at me because it seemed as if I was just trying to save Hearts, in my opinion. Somebody said, would you have the same opinion if it was Hamilton Accies who were being relegated? Well, my answer to that is, yes, you're absolutely right. I would have bloody had the same opinion because I don't think it would have been fair to you either.
I think you're principled and maybe you would have the same opinion, but I know for a fact that had it been the wee diddy club at the bottom like us, then we wouldn't have had the same support that's been shown towards us. Absolutely no question that would have happened. Maybe you would have, but it wouldn't have been the case. So I'm not buying that, I'm afraid. But anyway, that aside, we're still talking about the implications of clubs, and that's just the Premier League. Before we get to the other clubs, there was clubs that were very vociferous in the Championship. That became a toxic place for a period of time there. There were clubs that were, not prepared to do anything that was going to support Inverness because of their behaviour, for example. So it's just all the politics that lies under the bonnet, Peter, that leads to the result that you've seen today. And it's, and I've heard words used like toxicity and infighting. For goodness sake, there's people dying. This is football we're talking about. There's no toxicity. Stuart Robertson is on the board with me. We disagreed publicly in some of the things that happened over the last number of months. But Stuart and I are pals. I speak to him on the phone. We don't have an issue with each other. It's business and it's football. And because of the emotion attached to football, and you can hear it in my voice as well, we've all got emotion attached to football that sometimes means that sometimes you don't see it quite as clearly as you would if it was straightforward business.
Yeah, listen, I get that 100%. I mean, it's interesting to hear your take on the Hamilton Accies issue because, again, you maybe think then that it's just about Hearts, their huge support, the stature of that club, with the total contrast to Hamilton Accies, where you think nobody would have cared as much and there wouldn't have been as big a groundswell of opinion for change if you were in that bottom place.
100%. Absolutely 100%. And I say that with a bit of knowledge as well. But listen, we are where we are. What we've had to try and do, and it is really disappointing, we've tried to fix it using various mechanisms. And then, listen, we can look back at the original closing of the league and how that happened, and it could have been done better, and we'll be the first to accept it. And we'll look back at that and we'll hopefully remedy situations so that can never happen again, where a vote doesn't come in and without getting over the old ground, Peter. We need to make sure that whatever we do going forward, we don't get ourselves in this position again. We can't afford for Scottish football to be in a position where if there's a second spike in this illness, that it catches us out. We've got to be prepared and we've got to have rules in place that allow us to deal with it. And this has obviously caught everyone in the blind side. No one expected COVID. It's unprecedented. And I think the Championship now agreeing to play 27 games is a start. I think League One and League Two, the sense check is out there with them this week. They'll be reporting back to the league this week with a view to how many of them A, have the appetite because of the costs attached, and B, the ability to play with no crowds for a period of time. There's the Betfred Cup to discuss. How does that go ahead? When does it go ahead? How does it look? There's all of that to be discussed. And the bottom line is, when you've got a set of rules, and maybe, and I say this as a board member, but also as a businessman and as a football fan like you, maybe when you've got a set of rules in a members' organisation that require the percentages we require to get any change, maybe when they're setting the levels that they're at, it's always going to be difficult to get change when there's a difficult position, Peter.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I know there was possibly, and I might be wrong in this, obviously at the end of next season there was going to be talks about possible reconstruction then, but this has obviously been accelerated by the predicament we find ourselves in. Do you think that's dead and buried now, or do you think clubs will go to try and regurgitate this at the end of next season if we get to that?
Well, firstly, as somebody who's had his finger on the pulse of reconstruction, that's the first time I've heard there was going to be talks next year. Okay? So I've never heard that. A, on the board, and B, having my finger on it. So I don't know where you got that from, but that wouldn't be accurate. There's been no discussions around about having reconstruction, other than it raises its head from time to time. You know, I think Steve Brown at St Johnstone's always said he would like to consider a proper reconstruction that's for the benefit of all the members, thought through. And I think there's several people like me who think that as well. But it was never on the agenda. I've never got it back on the agenda. To have a proper...
Okay, the last couple of points, Les, and I really appreciate you giving up your time on this. What do you make of the conduct of Scottish football over the last 3 months? I, for one, I'm embarrassed by some of the conduct. I think some people will obviously, I think, have to look at their position, because the way it's been conducted over the last 2 or 3 months has left us at times to be a laughingstock and left me, you mentioned words toxicity and, of course, the infighting, has left me bewildered by it. If I hear one chairman or chief executive talk about sporting integrity again, I'm going to laugh in his face.
Okay, that's a difficult one, but I get where you're coming from. The bottom line is that a lot of this has been lived out in the media. Now, I've been on the board along with the other board members through this whole process, and if you go back to the Dundee vote day on that Friday, it all kicked off effectively from then, and the weeks leading up to that, as people were vying for position and trying to decide whether it was right or wrong to finish the leagues. Now, of course, at that point, COVID wasn't at the stage it's at now. We didn't know what we know now, and as a board, we think we made the best, worst decision we could make by going with that resolution. And only time will tell if that was right or not. I'm looking at the French situation just now, where they've got into a pickle because effectively their board made the decision, whereas we didn't. We went to the members and allowed the members to make the decision, and that's history now. We're trying again now to go to the members over the last week or so to try and get the members to do something so that we can come with a proposal we think we've got support for. But that's been blown away today, so I don't think we're in a position where we can come with a resolution which is going to gather enough support. So toxicity is the word I used. I think a lot of that was borne out in the media. I think a lot of it because we're locked down and nobody's got anything else to do other than look at the football. What's not happening in the football, there's a lot of that at stake here, Peter. I think when you look at the red tops and you look at the broadsheets, all of the sensationalism and toxicity was generated in these papers. And the radio and the TV, particularly Radio Scotland, who I think were pretty imbalanced through the whole thing. And I've told Richard that as well. I think they were pretty imbalanced through the whole thing and never gave a clear indication in both sides of the debate. So I think most of the people who have said things personally when they speak offline are on no fallout. There is no poison. You know that. You've been in football long enough to know that. But people have got strong views. And the red tops will grab that headline every day of the week and make it sound much worse than it actually is. And at the end of it, it is unfair that Hearts are relegated. It is unfair that Partick Thistle with a game in hand. I mean, I equally would, like Jackie Lowe and Dan Budge, and I've told Dan this, I would fight as well, as much as they're fighting if it was my club. You know, totally understand it. And there's a lot of empathy, and there's empathy in our board. We speak to them all the time. We don't hide from them. But there's nothing we can do when the member of the will of the clubs is not to change.
What would you like to see happen now?
My goodness. I mean, the first we're all back playing, whenever that might be, hopefully 1st of August for the Premier League, and then into October for the Championship, and maybe beyond for Leagues 1 and 2, whether it's later or not, I don't know. If that was to happen, there will be a challenge from Hearts, which we'll have to deal with, and we'll deal with that in a professional manner as a members' organisation looking after our members. So I would like to see football back, initially with closed doors as soon as we can get it, thereafter with social distancing, thereafter with crowds, and then hopefully into the new year with a bit of luck, back to having crowds and football as normal as it can be. And the Hearts situation will be whatever it is. Legally, it will pan out and we'll deal with it.
Okay, last 2 points then, Les. Even with his philanthropy, and James Anderson putting money into the SPFL Trust. If you can't get fans in, do you think there are clubs who are going to be in serious danger of being able to continue? Because I can't see fans going until January at the earliest.
I would agree with the January thing with fans, to be honest, Peter. I mean, the one thing I've learned, having been involved in Hamilton Accies since 2003, is and in junior football before that, and Clyde as well. So we've come from a background of understanding how the bottom tiers operate. They're very resilient, Peter. They find a way. Whether it's mothballing and shutting up shop this time round as the pandemic hits us, whether it's only playing half a season, whether it's not sending players until we get crowds back in to stay there, they find a way. So I can't tell you what will happen. I can tell you what I think will happen, and that's every single one of them will fight tooth and nail to survive. And it wouldn't be surprising if it happens that way, if the majority of them do survive, because they've got real resilience. And football, I know what you've said earlier, but I will use the word, the football family tries to look after each other and usually manages it. This is unprecedented. It's really unfortunate what's happened here. But we have to try and recover from it and build bridges. And how we do that is unclear at the moment.
Yeah, just on that building bridges, you mentioned you're still pals with, of course, Stuart Robertson. Do you think his position on the board is difficult, even with the situation where he called for the head of Neil Doncaster, Rod Mackenzie? Is that an ongoing situation, or do you think that's bygones are bygones?
I mean, it's not for me to break, director's privilege and board privilege, so I wouldn't do that. But what I will say is, Stuart had the things that he was unhappy about. He disagreed with things. He went public with it. If it was me, would I have done that? Probably not. But Stuart's entitled to do what he thinks is the right thing to do. And I spoke to him after these meetings. I spoke to him again today. And Stuart's in good terms with the board. He's asking the right questions. He's put his Rangers paper forward, and he's getting support for that where there is support from our board and from clubs. And he's conducting himself in a manner that you'd expect him, to act in behalf of a big football club like Glasgow Rangers. So I don't have an issue with Stuart. Don't agree with some of the things he said, some of the things he did, but we're all entitled to their opinions. And listen, the whole point of having a board is that you challenge decisions, you challenge your executive, and I think we do that, and that's where I disagree with Stuart. I think the governance is sound, and I think we've challenged that throughout the season and throughout this process, through unprecedented times, Peter, to be honest.
And what message from the board would you give to Brora and Kelty, who've entered into a meritocracy, who've entered into a pyramid system with the carrot of becoming a professional club in the professional setup? What message do you think they're getting, or would you give them today?
I'll phone George Fraser and I'll speak to Rod Houston, the guys who head up the Highland and the Lowland Leagues, and I'll be honest with them. They know what's happened. I've spoken to these guys and kept them in the loop, and they were hopeful, like me, that we'd have got something done, which would have meant that the ventilation at the bottom would have continued. But these are unprecedented times, as we keep saying, uncharted waters, and the members have ultimately voted, I would suspect, in your words, for self-preservation, not my words. But that's what it looks like, and ultimately there's nothing I can say to these guys other than they've got to continue going down the proper channels to try and fight their corner and try and make sure that ventilation is there and automatic promotion relegation is their goal. And I agree that that's what we should be aiming for, automatic promotion relegation, not playoffs at the bottom end. And it's not going to happen this year, unfortunately.
Okay, before I say goodbye to you, all I would say, in my opinion, I think the image of the SPFL has been tarnished. I think individuals have left themselves well open to criticism. I think it's going to be very difficult to try and get sponsorship into a family, as you put it, that at the moment looks as if everybody is knocking lumps out of each other. What would your message be to individuals in that family who've been clearly open and fighting? And what would your message be to people who are actually thinking, would we invest in the SPFL?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to get caught up in individuals. You said it's been tarnished. I think the one thing that has been really difficult is to deal with a pandemic with no planning for that pandemic in a football sense. So I don't know, individuals will do what individuals do. But I think our board is acting beyond reproach. for us to receive the kind of communications that we get by email and so on from people who haven't been told the whole story. I would like one day to tell the whole story, but because of director's privilege, you can't do that. And I think our board is conducting themselves immaculately. I think we've let ourselves down with the process of the initial resolution because it didn't work as efficiently as it should have done. There were things that we should have done differently, Peter. We shouldn't have released the result before the Dundee vote was in. But in all honesty, and you've known me for a long, long time, we genuinely thought Dundee's vote was going to be a no vote, and we made the result known because that's what we were told was happening, and then the rest is history. I don't think anyone on the board has done anything that is outside the box in terms of integrity. I don't think anybody should be tarnished on the board. I think these are big words. In business sense, we've done a good job. The end result will be COVID will do what it does. We'll come out the other end. And when football starts playing again, we want to be talking about football. And of course, I've been the chairman of a football club. I'm now the vice chairman. I understand what goes on at board level throughout all these clubs. And we've all got different challenges. And there is self-interest, and people will do what they've got to do to protect their clubs. But as a league, we've got to do what the members ask us. And the members have spoken clearly here. They wanted to end the leagues by 80% to 20%, a number of weeks back. And now they've said we don't want reconstruction by a significant margin. So really, I don't see how that tarnishes the board or the SPFL. I can see how it might make it difficult for us to get sponsors. But once football's up and running, that will take care of itself, rest assured.
Les, as ever, I always like a natter with you. I think you're upfront and honest about it all. And as ever, you've mentioned there you won't be able to tell that story until such times as you leave that board. I am available to write the book when you're ready. but on that note, apart from anything else, I hope the family stops fighting and we all get back to football. Thanks for joining us on the Football Show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What do you make of that, Ali?
Yeah, where to start? It's quite a few eye-opening moments in there. Like you, my interest was piqued when he said there was a few things that he'd like to say, but obviously with the bounds of confidentiality, I mean that he can't. I was also quite surprised at the admission that the Dundee vote, the reason why the vote was put out earlier, way back in April, was that the anticipation was that it was a no vote. I think kind of clouds the waters a wee bit further on that one, doesn't it? But yeah, quite eye-opening.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to what he had to say. I think the one thing I take from it, Roughie, is the board does indeed react to what the members want. And my main criticism is individual clubs and the way they've conducted themselves. But we're in a situation now where, apart from the legal action which is going to be taken by Hearts, we are still in a situation now where clubs are going to face a lot of financial difficulty from this vote. Clubs, again, as I think Les was first to point out there, have looked at the self-interest and thought, well, we don't. If we're going to vote for a league in the size of it, we're certainly not going to vote for one that could actually get us into the bottom half, for example, of the Premiership, and not get Celtic and Rangers coming up for an extra game. So stuff that. We're not going to say goodbye to 200 grand there. There's just a whole catalogue of these things. Plus, of course, add into it personal dislike for certain other members within this SPL family. Others in the SPFL family. I mean, I think that's abundantly clear. Alison, is there's a whole catalogue of things which has prompted them to get to this vote, whether we like it or not. All of these different things have come into the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. The other notable point there that we've spoken about repeatedly is just how difficult it is to engineer any significant change, because the bar is set so high in terms of the vote structure in the top flight that it's so difficult to get any change at all. And I think until that's addressed, it becomes almost impossible to have any change at all, which obviously he touched upon there. The other point I thought was interesting, and I agree with him on this, is that I think had it been Hamilton Accies or one of the smaller clubs, I don't think there would have been the same clamour to keep them up. I think there are obviously financial reasons with Hearts remaining in the league, that are pertinent. I think the prospect of an Edinburgh derby is always attractive to broadcasters and to other people, and I think it enhances the league. I would fully agree with him that had it been Hamilton or St Mirren in that position, I don't think there would have been the same. There might have been the same sympathy. I'm not sure there would have been the same appetite amongst observers to try and keep them in the league.
Yeah, the other thing about this, Roughie, and I did mention there was a catalogue of reasons, most of it based on self-interest, but the other aspect of this, and this is from my own personal knowledge on this, is the fact that the narrative eventually got lost, whereas it looked as if everybody was going to think, okay, we're going to get this vote started, we're going to try and save everybody because of the difficulties the clubs are all facing. Suddenly it started to become personal. Some people actually became petty about it and said, well, who does Anne Budge think she is? I'm not going to vote for them. She's put her head above the parapet. It's all about saving hearts. Suddenly the whole news headline had changed from, by the way, people are dying, Scottish football is in trouble because of this pandemic. That narrative was lost and suddenly it started to become about individuals. And then from there, it just became a free-for-all of madness from one day to the next.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't believe at the beginning of the interview with Les when you asked him, when the whoever it was, the clubs, got in touch today to say why they wouldn't be voting for it. I couldn't believe why he didn't think it was a right reason to ask them why. Surely it would have been good to have it on record, and we wouldn't stop we instead of speculating that it wasn't for the money, we don't want Kelty and Brora up because we might get ditched into the Lowland League. It'd be interesting to see why they all voted no. And although we could guess most of the reason, the money side of it. The money side of it, I can't get my head round. The Sky deal was much better than the last deal, so they were all getting more money. So they weren't going to be losing that much more. But they're right, the relegation thing's a big one. I didn't know we were going to go for 2 and 3 teams getting relegated. That wasn't in any motion of reconstruction, was it?
Yeah, well, listen, there could have been 3 or 4 different permutations on it, Roughie, if it had been if it had been a short-term fix of a one season only, it would have been on the agenda. The one thing I would say though is, when you listen to what he had to say, if you're saying, it would have been great for him to tell us what the clubs are thinking, well, I'll tell you why that wasn't on the cards, Alison, for today to get everybody's thoughts, because some of the snowflake clubs don't like to be revealing what their reasoning behind it was, because they feel as if that was undue pressure being put on them. Some people don't like to be read the rules. Some people don't like to be, have it all explained to them, because apparently when the first whole set of rules came out, people came out and said that they were being bullied. Do you remember that from 3 months ago?
Yeah, we all remember that, don't we? We all remember where it went to, and it did become toxic. And I take his point to a small extent about the media maybe aggravating that and highlighting it, but I don't think there is no question that there was ill feeling and substantial ill feeling there in the light of everything that happened and how it happened. And I think he's right to say that when you look back and go back to the very first process of the vote, that things could and should have been handled differently, which might have alleviated some of that ill feeling.
Yeah, although to be perfectly honest with you, I can't speak for every individual. I can't speak for every red top, or indeed the broadsheets, or indeed broadcasters across the board. But what I would say, and I'm not their defence lawyer, but what I would say is, I like Les, but it's an easy cop-out to blame all the media. Some people conduct themselves in a certain fashion, and they are unbecoming of our profession as well. Sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes people have a bias. They have an invested interest. Some people are puppets, let's be honest about it. But the majority of people who work in our industry report what is happening. And, to blame the media, I think, is wide of the mark, because quite simply, Alison, you only have to look and chart a day-by-day account of how some people who are either chairman, chief executives, you name it, in the clubs, how they conducted themselves. And some of them used the media as a platform to actually air their views and wash their linen and tell us about every conversation they were having on private WhatsApp groups.
Absolutely.
The media didn't make that up, Alison.
Absolutely. And the media is the platform there which gives voice to some of those stories. It airs some of those stories, but there was a decision made on the part of individuals to come out and publicise those reasons. And I think you're shooting the messenger a wee bit sometimes when you come out and point the finger at us for simply giving the platform on which to tell the story.
It's quite difficult. I actually put that point to you, Alison, because I didn't want to put it to Roughie, because Roughie's kind of a double agent. He's on the board and then sometimes forgets he's in the media as well. So I thought I'd just put that one to you, Ali, rather than anything else. Anyway, apart from anything else, listen, you could dedicate so many hours on a show all the way to midnight on this and still not resolve it. We've heard all the grievances. I thought, I don't know about you, I enjoy Les. I like him as a person. I think he's got a lot to offer in the SPFL board sense as well. There were some frank exchanges there and some interesting insights from him, Roughie.
Yeah, I thought one of the good things at the end was he agrees that this voting system is wrong. So the question I was going to ask you is, who changes it? Does the board change it, or do the clubs change it?
Well, I think there needs to be a groundswell of it.
11 won 75%. Surely there must be a groundswell after all this debacle.
Yeah, well, you would think so. You would think so. I mean, it's something that long before coronavirus ever reared its ugly head, Alison, I called for this to go, this 11-1. It's a nonsense. But dare I say it, and if you look back at the history on it, I think, and I'm 99% certain, with Rangers not in the league at the time, Aberdeen had the chance to sink this 11-1 vote and blew it big time. And I don't want to get into the reasons for it, but that was the chance to change the voting structure.
Yeah, I think it's apparent now. It's almost impossible to drive through any change for so long as this remains in existence. There's an imbalance here in terms of getting a groundswell of opinion and looking to change something, how difficult it is to do it. And I think it's certainly something now, in the light of the last 3 months, that we have to consider again. I think that you have to facilitate change sometimes, and you have to make it that there's an easier course of action to take to drive through alternatives. It's just so difficult. It's almost impossible just now to change any of the legalities at that level.
Yeah. Terence Duke says, Peter, why did you wait till he was away before saying your piece? Well, to be honest with you, the piece that I was saying was you can't blame the media for everything, but the potential for me to get into a tit-for-tat argument of we're all together in the media and you're wrong to blame us is not what the interview's about, Terence. It's about getting his thoughts on all the pertinent points, not about me suddenly defending all my fellow colleagues. That becomes just as petty as some of the board members and some of the people who were involved in this toxicity, I wish I could say toxicity, Roughie, over the last 2 or 3 months. Anyway, apart from anything else, it's a word that we didn't use that often, but we've been using it a hell of a lot in the last 3 months. You can give us your view on it. We'll try and read out as many as possible this week. There's a few things I'd like to get before we actually say farewell tonight. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Les Gray. Lynn Sutherland says, can you put a shout out for Bucky Thistle, who are running the equivalent of Victoria Park to Hampden for local charities? Lynn, tell all the people who are doing it up there at Bucky, well done. Worthy cause, magic. Holly McLachlan is a fan of the show. Brian Roberts says, could you ask Roughie, did Tommy Docherty drop him when he managed Scotland?
No, Tommy Docherty actually brought me into the first squad against Belgium. He was the manager there. I never played any games under him, but he gave me my first taste of international football.
Yeah, magic, positive one. Patrick McManus says it should have been a top division of 14 for one season only. Jim O'Donnell says, I thought the Spanish atmosphere was better than the German version. It was good to watch at the weekend. Of course, watching Messi come back, set up a couple and score one himself. And John Givens says, it's just disrespect to Brora and Kelty, and that's John, who is actually in Phnom Penh. So that gives you an indication, Ali. We've got fans all over the place, Phnom Penh and Maryhill. It's as simple as that. They're from everywhere, Ali. We even have fans in Clarkson. It's as simple as that. Ali, name names. Who are they? Anyway, I thought I'd quickly ask you guys. The other thing was Alec Dyer, Alison. 2-year deal at Kilmarnock. Well done to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a difficult role, I think, for him to go in and assume that the turn of the year. I think he's fairly steadied things, and I think he's a popular figure within the dressing room. I think he, when he was assistant to Steve Clarke, I think he was the guy that was probably more in the day-to-day running with the players and conversing with the players, and I think he's quite an affable guy. I think he's got a good relationship with the bulk of the first team. I'm sure he'd be quite a popular permanent appointment.
Yeah, and Robbo signs a 2-year deal, Roughie, till 2023 at Inverness, which means that if Hearts want him, they're going to have to up the ante and pay compensation higher than they thought they would.
Yeah, it only happens. It doesn't only happen with players, managers as well. You have to protect somebody of value, and I think that's what they've done. And at this moment in time, Robbo must be gutted a wee bit. He's lost, I think it's 3 or 4 of his best players to Motherwell, to Dundee, St Johnstone. So he's got a rebuilding there if he is still there at the beginning of the season. So it's going to be a tough one for him.
Yeah. Couple of players that I was going to get their thoughts on. Alison, the ongoing situation, players leaving clubs. Johnny Hayes, Aberdeen would like a quick decision from him, and Craig Gordon is out in the market, and it looks as if he's favouring a return to Hearts, which for me would make perfect sense. He's a big Hearts fan after all.
Yep, absolutely. It's an interesting one, I think, the Craig Gordon one, because I think so much is tied up in what might happen next with Fraser Foster. As I said to you last week, I think the finances involved in Celtic keeping Fraser Foster are prohibitive. I fully expect if they do retain him, it will be a loan spell rather than a permanent signing. But I still think that might affect just what they go back to, or if they go back to Craig Gordon. But I also wonder just if he's reached the stage of his career where he wants to play and he wants to play regularly. He's 37, I think, Craig Gordon. I think the fact he lost a few years of his career to injury might actually add to the longevity of his playing days now. I think there's never been any secret that he was a Hearts fan. I know St Mirren showed a big interest in him too. I think it was a very ambitious move from Jim Goodwin to go and try and get him to go to Paisley this season, but I'm sure if Hearts match that financially, then he would probably prefer to go back to Tynecastle. And as for Johnny Hayes, I think Aberdeen has been a good fit for him in the past, and I would see no reason why he might not fancy going back to Pittodrie again to work with a manager and a squad of players that he already knows.
Yep, and no surprise, Roughie, the Scottish Football Writers Association have voted Odsonne Edouard the Player of the Year.
Yeah, again, another player, year on year, getting better and better. He's still just a young lad, but some of his performances during the season were absolutely fantastic. And not just the goals that he scored, but the work rate he puts in and the assists that he's got as well. And you can see he's a game changer. You can see he's got that in him. When you need that player to step up and be counted, he's the one.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Obviously, from my own point of view, I wasn't part of the press corps in 1996. I had the summer off, and most of my mates, we all headed down to Euro 96 to follow Scotland. All of us followed Scotland everywhere from the 70s, roughly the 80s and the 90s as well. And Euro 96 was fantastic. And amazingly, Roughie, as most of the Tartan Army do, when they can't get a ticket for the Scotland end, they then have to get tickets for the England end. And I have to tell you, it was painful, to say the least, when we managed to get tickets and we are in the England end for Euro 96. If I hear that song, It's Coming Home, one more time, it just keeps reminding me of it. But nevertheless, cast your minds back, because today of all days is a day when England and Scotland came together at a major tournament.
This day in 1996 was the first England versus Scotland game in 7 years, and it was the first time the pair had met in the finals of a major tournament. Alan Shearer scored his second goal of Euro 96 in the 54th minute. The superb header from a Gary Neville cross gave England the lead. Then an unforgettable sequence of events in the final 11 minutes summed up the game. Scotland captain Gary McAllister saw his penalty saved by keeper David Seaman. Moments later, Paul Gascoigne fired in a memorable second goal for England. He looped the ball over the head of Colin Hendry and volleyed it past Andy Gorham into the net. And his celebration is almost as memorable as the goal. The win meant England needed just a draw against Holland to clinch a quarter-final spot.
Oh, painful, Roughie. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I think the penalty kick one was a painful one. You know, you would obviously think if he got that goal, he got something out of the game. And I remember seeing it, and I know there was a lot of debate about that maniac. What's his name? Uri Geller. But the ball did. The ball did.
Suddenly,
Yeah,
suddenly you've got an opinion because Uri Geller doesn't watch the show.
No, I've always had him. Not at all. No, and he comes out where I just shook my head. But the ball did move. If you get a chance to see it again, the ball did move if he took it. But you have to say it was a good save as well. But the Gascoigne goal was something special. You know, if it been one of our players that had done that, we'd be raving about it. And certainly it was fantastic technique, and it was just one of these games where you could have had something, but in the end there was nothing.
Yeah,
but it was a good England side.
Yeah, absolutely. Roughie Gaza, genius. And here's a look at the teams, Alison. Not a bad lineup in '96 as well for us.
Absolutely, it's amazing if you look at that, how many players were actually playing in England too at the time, and playing at the top level. I think that's what we miss sometimes now, is that you have a dearth of players for the national team who are playing in the top leagues and playing in England. I think you miss that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good lineup, good footballers in there. We're getting back there, folks. We're getting back there. Fingers crossed if we do get back to playing football on the pitch. Maybe this layoff will give the likes of a Billy Gilmore a chance to emerge as the midfield linchpin that we build our entire team around. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, I have to say to each and every one of you, thank you very much again for following us on the programme. As ever, lots of talking points, no shortage of opinions. Some you like, some you don't. Thank you to the countless people who have actually liked, shared and follow us on Facebook. Tomorrow we'll be giving away another t-shirt, and also on YouTube. If you subscribe to our channel, that would be great. You'll get all the latest updates, great unique video content as well. And if you get a chance, we're on Twitter at PLZ Soccer, and we come up on Periscope too, so you can watch it on your phone wherever you are. If you download the app, you can actually record a video message and send it to us. And if we use it on the show, then we will send you out a t-shirt as well. So I think the overriding message, Roughie, as well as the disappointment of the result, which was still a few twists and turns ahead, I think the overriding message I get in a sense from you is quite simply, okay, we may well have lost the vote, but something has to change about the voting process.
Yeah, I think so. I think Alison's touched on it already. It's a voting system that you could barely pass anything on. It'd be interesting to see if there's enough thought that has to be changed and how you change it. Let's hope you don't have to vote on it.
Yeah, absolutely. There you are. Roughie leaving you with a cliffhanger there. So a big thanks to everyone who watched the show, including Uri Geller, who just tuned in there and says, "What's that tube saying about me on the show?" But that's just it. Everybody's got their opinion, Uri. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Thanks to Ali. Thanks to Roughie.
All my forks will all be bent in the kitchen tonight.
I didn't want to go for that one, Roughie, but nevertheless, on that note, from Ali, from Roughie, from myself, Peter Martin, thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.